When the Yamaha R1 came out, it was a pretty big deal, mainly because of the fact that it made absurd amounts of power, 150 bhp on a bike, when that kind of power would have been impressive on a car. Every single version of the R1 since has made incredible power gains. When the last version came out, it made 197 bhp, and now we have the brand new 2020 R1 with a massive power increase of 0. What?
Yep. Power on this 2020 bike is the same as the old one. In fact, it uses the same chassis, the same subframe, and a very similar engine with tweaks that ultimately don't amount to any more grunt. On the surface, it looks as if Yamaha just phoned this one in, like they haven't made any progress whatsoever. But there is a big reason for that.
The reason this doesn't make any more power or have a new chassis is because Yamaha had to concentrate on improving something else. Yeah, emissions. The truth is that bikes, like cars, pollute the environment, and the lawmakers in Europe have been cracking down on how much filth they can pump into the environment. And all bikes have to comply with the very stringent EU5 emissions regulations.
Usually, engines can reduce their emissions by adding filters, but this usually kills the power. Adding a bigger engine would regain that power, but bigger engines weren't an option for Yamaha, as the 1000cc limit is what makes it legal to go racing. Instead, they had to clean up their act.
And they've done it by focusing on the boring stuff. They've improved the efficiency of the engine's combustion by using a more advanced combustion system with new cylinder heads and injectors and 4 catalytic converters. 4. This isn't a bike that's been designed to please the people. It's a bike that's been designed to please the people at the European Commission. In terms of design, not much has changed either, really. To me, it looks a bit like a facelift, but that's no bad thing because the previous bike was actually nice looking. This fairing has had a bit of a tweak. The fairing's the plastic bit around the bike for all my car people out there, and I really like these thin LED lights at the front with these circular main beams below that. You've got this huge air intake that shovels air directly into the 1 litre Yamaha cross-plane engine. As for the tank, well, nice and sculpted with these little carbon fiber bits, really easy to grab hold of with your thighs, essential when you're braking hard. As for the seat, well, it's quite large, good if you've got a larger posterior, and it's quite anatomically correct as well. It's shaped a bit like a bum. There's even a passenger seat, a pillion seat on the back, designed for very tiny, very brave passengers. Up front, we've got probably the most flimsy set of switches I've encountered in a long, long time. These things just look like they're gonna break with any kind of force. And as for the screen itself, even though it shows the information nice and clearly, it doesn't look like it's been designed with any kind of flair or passion whatsoever. Still, nice looking bike. Let's swing a leg over, see what she's like on the road. So, little confession, I've actually never ridden an R1 before, and I've always been curious as to what it's like. And the first thing to note is that the riding position is obviously quite aggressive. The foot pegs are quite high up, the seat is high, the handlebars are low. It feels like quite a big bike actually. The suspension's quite racy as well. The damping is fluid, so it doesn't crash about, but there's not much give. You always feel what the road is doing. Good thing on the track, maybe not so much around town though.
There are 4 different riding modes on this bike, A, B, C and D. A being the fastest and D being the least aggressive. In D, it feels really tame. Anyone can ride it because the power delivery in this mode is so lazy, it feels almost like a 600cc bike. If you keep the throttle open, the power builds massively, of course, but this only happens when you're high up in the rev range, so it doesn't feel intimidating at all. However, if you pull over and switch modes, the R1 transforms.
Right, I've skipped straight over mode C and gone right up to B to see what that's all about, and I've got to say it's massively different. I was expecting the power delivery to be slightly more keen, but it's night and day. It feels like I'm on a different bike. Before, it felt kind of like a 600cc bike that didn't actually run out of power. Now, it feels completely deranged. It's immense. I didn't see what all the hype was about before, but now, wow. And actually, the rest of the bike has really come alive. I find myself leaning on the brakes a lot more, and I've got to say, they're really strong. They don't give me a lot of confidence. There's definitely more acceleration power than there is braking power, but they do stop well.
The quicker you accelerate, the quicker you reach the corners, and the more speed you might carry through them. Luckily, the R1 is a pretty agile bike. It's a big old thing, but it changes direction very quickly for something that feels so hefty.
It's quite a physical thing to ride, the R1. I don't feel like it's a bike I'd want to rush into quick changes of direction. If this was a dance, I'd say this feels more like a bike that wants to do the waltz rather than the quick step, but it sticks to its lines quite nicely and feels nailed down through the bends.
The dominant trait with the R1, however, is the power. Mode B is plenty, but if you're brave enough to step things up to Mode A, it becomes terrifying.
My God, that's fast! I find it hard to imagine there's another step up from Mode B, but there it is. It's actually violent. The throttle response is blindingly fast. It spins up super quickly, and you just ride this surge of power. You don't have to have it anywhere near the red line either, 13,500 RPM. From about 10k onwards, it feels like I'm sat on an actual rocket. I've ridden bikes with more power on paper. Does the R1 feel slower? Absolutely not. I don't think I actually want to go much faster than this.
Luckily, the R1 has a big safety net if you get things wrong. It uses a 6-axis inertial measurement unit, or IMU, essentially a gyroscopic sensor that measures pitch, roll and yaw, plus an accelerometer that can work out how the bike is moving 125 times a second. It then sends these signals to the ECU, which controls the bike's safety systems. ABS, slide control, traction control and wheelie control are all available to help keep this bike shiny side up.
And it's a bloody relief knowing that those systems are there to save my backside, I can tell you.
So the R1 is just as quick as ever. It might feel as if they've missed the trick in terms of not extracting any more power from the engine, preferring instead to boost efficiency, but this bike doesn't really suffer as a result.
The R1 proves that the arms race to stuff sports bikes with more and more power is just getting a bit silly, isn't it really? Okay, it's not any more powerful than the previous version, but trust me when I tell you, power is the last thing that this bike needs. The Euro 5 legislation had the ability to kill off bikes like this completely, so Yamaha should be applauded for standing firm and developing a solution that enables bikes like this to live on. And the R1 is brilliant. It's massively fast, it handles well, and yeah, it's very track focused, but even on the roads, even in the hands of a relative novice, this is a bike that's still massively accessible. And that is definitely something worth applauding.